Okay, so now I'm going to add a little bit of black branches, like tiny branches. I'm going to use a very tiny paintbrush and put water into my black. I'm actually going to pour a little bit in, not too much, because water and acrylic don't do too much together. Water and dry paint definitely don't do anything. Kind of reviving that a little bit and mixing it up. With this black and my tiny brush, I'm going to put some lines on my tree, as well as making some branches that also kind of come off my tree. Not a lot, just a little bit, kind of making some marks on there. And just to give it a little bit more texture. You almost want it to be like you're using ink. Nothing crazy. I'm going to kind of come up over my sun a little bit. Don't worry about how perfect they are. They're just twigs coming off. Some lines. If you can get it the right consistency, it's almost like a pen stroke. You don't have to put the lines everywhere, just enough to give your tree some bark. And I kind of have a puddle in my paint tray. Not sure if you can see that. So like, I didn't put a lot of water, but enough to have more of an ink texture and not an acrylic paint texture. Make sure you have branches going off of both sides of your tree, not just one. And they can also overlap in different places. Once we start adding in leaves, it'll fill in a little bit more, so don't feel like your painting is too empty. Right now, this painting is working on a lot of little details. So if that's something you're not normally comfortable with, this is good practice. This is also where your inner perfectionist will come out. So don't get so discouraged, just breathe. And remember, it's a tree, and no tree is perfect. And don't be afraid to get really close to the edge of your canvas. Things can go off the canvas as well. Makes it look more zoomed in. All right, now I'm going to let those dry before I go in and add all the leaves. If you used a lot of water, and like I have a few that have some puddles, I'm not going to move it because I don't want that to run all over my canvas. So let that dry, and then we will come back and we'll use our reds, orange, and yellow on the leaves. Okay, so now time to add some leaves. And as I was looking at this, I've decided I'm going to add a little bit of white. Mainly just because I don't want a lot of darks, if I can get my white open. So I'm going to use the middle of my paint tray, and I'm going to put white and all my reds, yellows, and orange kind of around it. I have green left from our last painting that I might also use some of for this. Haven't fully decided yet. But that is up to you if you want to use a few extra colors. I figured it's always there if I want. That's one of the nice things about not always cleaning your paint tray off right away, is having a few different options when it comes to adding detail. And remember, just because I do it doesn't mean you have to do it. Before I start with all my leaves, I am going to use my little brush that I used for black again real quick. Get it fairly wet and get a wet spot on my white. I'm just going to kind of do some wispy white as well. So on some of those branches, I'm just going to add some white branches as well, and maybe on some of these brown spots, some white lines, just to add a little extra detail. Nothing too crazy. Using lots of my water there. Just gives that tree a little more texture. And I just thought of this while I was watching my 7th graders, so don't feel like you have to do it. It was just a cute detail that I saw one of them do on something, and I was like, oh, that would look nice on our painting. Sometimes somebody else's suggestion is a great help. And I'm only going to add it on a few, not all, and I can always go back in later and add more. A little bit more water in there. Because some of these spots were just looking a little dark to me, and I wasn't sure how I felt about that. So I was happy that she was thinking enough to show me a way. All right, so I've added some spots. Nothing big, just the minor details. So now I'm going to use some of my flatter brushes, a couple different sizes, big, little, and I'm going to take some orange and white and dab it around my branches. I'm also going to do some with my yellow and white, and I still have some orange on there. You can switch in between if you want. I kind of like mixing all my colors together. So I don't know how much I will change my brush, but use all those colors and put some fall leaves on all your branches. Now, if you get too much paint, it's going to get globby like that. The less you have, the more choppy it's going to look. And so you decide what you like. If you need to, you might want a spare piece of paper that you can dab on before you start dabbing on your painting. But you are just adding some leaves around there. Now I'm going to try some of my hooker green isn't as juicy as I thought it was left over. So there's a little bit of green in there. Not sure if I'm loving the way it was looking, but I am loving this brush. The stamp it makes is definitely one of my favorites. And this is also a way that if you made a branch that you are not fully satisfied with, you can kind of cover it up a little bit. And you are going to do that to all of your branches. So I'm going to turn off the video for a while and I will show you again quick when I am done. Alright, so as I'm finishing up this last corner, again, real fast motion, don't get too particular. Leaves are not perfect. Leaves also fall off trees. So if they don't look like they're directly on a branch, don't get bent out of shape. Now, I don't know about you, but I was really loving the yellow and red together. So, and I think I've hit about all my branches. At least the way I want it to look. Really loving this section right here. But you can do yours however thickly you want, thinly you want. It is just extra detail. That white detail was totally optional. And I look forward to seeing what you guys make.